Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki ota, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Kia ora.
Apologies, there was no apologies, and Sophie is online. Thanks, Sophie. And identification of any extraordinary business. There is none, thank you. We'll accept the terms of reference for information, and we've got the confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting. Would someone like to move and second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you'll do that. Yeah. Malcolm, and who was second? And Shane, thank you. All those in favour? Against, carried. And is there any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest, thank you. This is my report, which I'll take as read. I'll go back to that, sorry. Yeah. Sharon, if you could introduce Steve, please.
Thank you, Bob. Councillors, I'd like to introduce you to Steve Gibbling, who's sitting in the back. Steve is our new Executive Director of People, Culture and Capability. He started yesterday, and you'll be seeing and hearing a lot from Steve in the coming months, because he'll be responsible for running our staff survey, etc. So welcome, Steve.
Kia ora, Steve.
Shane.
Mr. Chair, just apology, I'll be leaving at 2:30 to attend the drop-in set at Eastern LTP.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Go to my turn. Okay. Got a note of that. Thank you. Okay, I'll take the Chairman's report as read. Do I have a move and seconder? Malcolm and Grant. All those in favour? Against, carried. Is there any discussion? No. Okay. I'll move that. If you have, sorry. All those in favour? Against, carried. Thank you.
We've got a live vote here from Councillor Glidden.
Oh, sorry.
Discussion on your report.
Yes, sorry.
I had a question around some of the Anzac Day, and
I took away from the table because I am Secretary of Springs RSA, so I just want to clarify that that is right side of the
Okay. Thanks, Deborah.
around Anzac Day, and does council provide public liability for the Anzac Days? Is that something that has been done in the past? And my other one is around Darfield Pool, and I just wonder if it's worth talking with our community around the LTP for maybe extended levels of service for the Darfield Pool now that the upgrade is there. Can we extend the season?
So just in response to that, I'd have to follow that up. I'm not aware that there's been invoices or payments made in regards to public liability insurance, but to be absolutely clear, I'll follow that up. You've raised a question about increasing the levels of service for Darfield Pool, and there's that's not been factored into the long-term plan at this stage, to my knowledge. I see that James is behind you, so I might just defer to James to whether or not there's any intention or there's been any costings put in to increase the level of service provision through Darfield.
Kia ora. At this stage, no, there's no level of service increase for Darfield Pool. That said, with the redevelopment that has occurred out of that facility, there would be the ability to extend the seasons if need be. So I guess the signal from me would be if we get some submissions based on that, we could look at that and cost it out and include that as part of the long-term plan based on and change based on the submissions that we receive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Executive Director's report. Thank you. Denise?
Kia ora koutou katoa. The report that's in front of you touches on the fully funded play advocate role, but I'm not intending to speak about that because we're going to get a presentation from Adele presently. I just wanted to touch on a couple of areas. One was there was some interest expressed in a previous meeting to hear a bit more about the direction of travel regarding the Military Museum feasibility study. And I will invite Nicola to speak to that report or that section within the report. And I just draw to your attention as Nicola comes up to respond to any of the questions and to give a little bit of an overview that the direction of undertaking a military museum was included in the strategic plan, and Nicola will talk to that. There's currently no budget provision within the long-term plan, and we're not intending to change that arrangement. We do believe, the officers do believe there's some merit in undertaking a feasibility study based on the place of this Burnham in the military in regards to New Zealand's history, but it's not proposed that council is expending any budget other than in-house the resourcing of staff if it was to be done in-house. But I'll invite Nicola to speak to that shortly. The other piece of the report that I just wanted to highlight was that there's been a number of conversations over the recent months around the facilities network plan and the intention to review it. That there's a section on that contained in the Executive Director's report to give you a bit of an overview of what's actually going to be included in that network plan and the work program and its timelines associated with it. Some of that is intended to manage expectations so that councillors aren't expecting the whole thing to be done and dusted by December of this year, but rather what will be intended to be presented to council between December, the committee will council between December and of this year or February of next, is a high level overview of the facilities network plan. And for the first time, that will take into account all of the facilities available for hire and usage by the public. So that will include sports pavilions and it will include swimming pools. And we've already previously incorporated libraries and service centres into the community facilities plan, so that what you will get is an overview of all of those facilities with a focus on place, so where we would expect to see further development, and there will be references to the spatial plans and the timing of the reviews that are taking place of those spatial plans and the population projections associated with the district. There's going to be that high level network plan tabled. There's also going to be a report to council on some options and tools for council to encourage external investors or community groups and partnerships arrangements, so that council isn't the sole funder of facilities. So as we have talked about previously in a briefing, I believe, was that in recent history, a lot of the focus of council has been building and operating facilities, and there's an opportunity for us to take a bigger view around that in terms of, are there other ways we can support the facilities within the district without council having to be the person, the body that constructs these buildings and operates these buildings. And so the intent is that a report will come to council outlining some of those options that exist, and it will be linked into the investment strategy. Thirdly, between the third of May 2024 and June 2027, and the report that you'll get on the facility network plan will outline this. There will be the actual work program and the dates that we expect certain parts of the district and certain places to have had some work completed on. And so that's, I guess, where I'm trying to clarify that the work will not have been done by December this year. But what you will be able to expect is a work program that will outline when the work is going to be undertaken. And we are committed to working across council and having the relevant teams ensure that their work plans all align in that regard. And I guess there was just one further thing that I wanted to highlight, is that the expectation is that there will be 3 community centres / halls that will get some initial priority focus in some of the work program that the report will outline. And those 3 halls are Green Park Memorial Hall, Mead Hall, and Courtney Hall. And again, that will have a link to the investment and divestment strategy, but also I draw to your attention the fact that there may be other options for the use of those facilities in terms of use of a different facility than what it's currently used for, and still with the council still retaining ownership. It could be that it's a lease to a business or a community group or a company. There are a range of options. So I don't want to mislead you into thinking that the only option is to sell or keep in its current form. There will be some exploration of a range of options in terms of the future use of those facilities. So on that note, I'll just hand across to Nicola to catch you up in terms of the military museum piece of work.
Kia ora, and thank you, Denise. So I thought I would just start with a very brief sort of overview about the context or the background to where we have arrived at today. So you might recall in the 21-31 LTP, so that's your last LTP, Council made a commitment to developing a heritage strategy to inform any future funding for groups and for projects. And the expectation was that heritage strategy would be developed with input from the local heritage groups in the community, and also some of the agencies like Heritage New Zealand. And so we carried out a piece of work where we talked with the 14 local heritage groups and a number of different heritage agencies and across council staff, and we came up with a strategic heritage action plan, which you may recall passing or approving that plan in December 2022. And that strategic heritage plan was it contained a vision, and the vision was uniquely Waikiri Selwyn, sharing our rich heritage and celebrating our district's identity. So that was the vision that was included in the plan, and then there were a number of actions that fell out of that, 11 of them. And that those actions, because of where the strategic heritage plan fell, those actions were going to be funded based on decisions made in annual plan processes and then this next long-term plan process. So within that heritage action plan that was approved, there was a goal there that said council would make an informed decision about future support for the Regimental History Museum. And that action was around taking a look at whether there was merit in undertaking a feasibility study, and then if there was some merit, coming back to council through the annual plan process for funding for that feasibility study. Now, there was a number of unfortunate health incidents at the Regimental History Centre at that particular point in time, and so that work was put on hold for 1 year, which brought it into this LTP process. Meantime, some work was undertaken to see whether there was any merit in council proceeding with some consideration of a feasibility study, and there was some merit determined that there was some merit in understanding the opportunity further, and that's centred around the fact of the military story being a uniquely Selwyn story. It's a long story in the district. The story delivers to both the heritage vision of being uniquely Waikirikiri Selwyn and celebrating that heritage, but also delivered to the council's outcomes. There was also perceived potential for adding to the district and a willing partner to do this work with. So there was some merit in progressing with a feasibility study, but there has been no budget provision made for that in the long-term plan. The thought was that if council was interested, then there is potential within current staffing, but also the potential for external funding were we to proceed with a feasibility study. I think what's really important is that if further work was done to understand the context and the opportunity, then that implies and makes no commitment on council to do anything further. All it does is inform council around a discussion and a decision that could potentially be made. I think what's really important to also understand in the lead up to the last long-term plan, where council committed to the development of a heritage strategic action plan, was that there was a large number of submissions from community history and heritage groups and individuals. So there was a significant number in comparison with other topic areas. My understanding and my read of the discussions that I'm hearing out in our broader community is that there is likewise for this long-term plan submission process likely to be quite a lot of interest from all of the 14 heritage groups and individuals in the community who have some quite strong thoughts about what they would like to see council do in regards to heritage. So I guess this paper didn't put forward a report for a decision to be made. It was put into the executive director's report because it was requested by council to better understand the background, but just an encouragement that the long-term submission process is likely to bring in a lot of feedback from a lot of different history groups, community history groups, which council may want to take into consideration. So is that the context that you're looking for?
Just one question, Nicola, if you would, around that. There is intended to be a report that comes back to council. This foreshadows it because there was some interest in finding the direction of travel, but there will be a report. And one of the options in that report will be that council or the committee does nothing further. That will be an option. That may or may not be the recommended option. That's still to be seen, but we do think it's worth, I guess, recognising that there will be an opportunity to reflect and review at some time later in the calendar year after the long-term plan submissions process has concluded.
Yes, that's correct. And also, so that report will be an annual report, and basically it reports on all of the actions taken, activity taken place, so that you can see your strategy is being delivered, but also that further work.
Okay, thanks, Nicola. Are there any questions of Nicola or Sophie first? Okay. Grant?
As part of that report, are we absolutely clear on the Army's position on this? Because it seems unusual to me, an organisation which prides itself on its history and its esprit de corps, and bases its whole operation on that basis, that the local council is doing a feasibility study. Have we actually asked the Army what their position is? Because I just find it astounding that the Army wouldn't be progressing this themselves. It just seems so much a part of the operations and running of the Army that I find it hard to believe. Putting my other hat on, I'm sort of questioning why an organisation that pays no rates would ask us to build something for them.
So part of the feasibility would be understanding that positioning, but my understanding from the Regimental History Association is that it's a not-for-profit community group that has formed around the preservation and the celebration of the regimental history rather than it being per se an army thing. But I can't speak with expertise to that, and the feasibility study would need to ask and answer the question of the role of the army in that.
Thank you, Bob. The group met with me towards the end of last year and actually brought NZDF personnel colonels with them, who have indicated that they are supporting the group's request. It has been made clear to the group that actually any requests for any bills would have to go to an LTP and would have to form a submission. And I suspect that you will see a submission will be tabled at this coming LTP around wanting further activity.
Phil?
I love the idea. I think it's a great idea. I mean, we look over New Zealand and around the world, we see military museums and museums becoming these more interactive amusement museums. And yeah, something that I think that Rolleston and Burnham would actually be a great asset. My concerns are, and I guess this will be for part of your report. And I guess I'm asking, will this be part of your report? I know Wigram is probably going through a similar thing at the moment. I know they want to update. They want to zhuzh themselves up as well. And we also know that the main museum in town is in the process of zhuzhing itself up, and it's some 6 years away from being completed. So in terms of the the small museum dollar that people have in their pockets, it's going to be keenly sought after from those two as well. I guess and just picking up on the army thing that Grant said, yeah, they do pay no rates, and why don't they do it? Maybe part of this thing would be that I'd be wanting to know is if the army's so keen on it, why don't they do it on their own site? And why don't they fund it with NZDF money and that sort of thing? So yeah, but I guess these are all the questions we don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Sophie?
Sorry, before I did want to say something, but I hadn't figured out what, so thank you for coming back to me. I guess my concern is we still haven't implemented a heritage rate, which we have discussed in the past, but we never actually got over the line for various reasons, and that's fine. But if and when we do, we already have a lot of heritage groups that are in need of support, and they're established. We know that they've been getting some help from Canterbury Museum. Their needs are known. So this would be on top of that. And I guess what I'm worried about is if we commit to even a feasibility study for this, that's at the moment an unknown sum of money that is going into consultancy and fact finding rather than actual impact. And it's the lack of impact that worries me, to be honest. The other part is that the museum mentioned on page 28, it says the proposal draws on a similar museum in Albany, Western Australia. I did have a look to see if I could figure out which one it is, and I presume that it's the National Anzac Centre in Western Australia, which cost 10.6 million in 2014, so 10 years ago, and that was Australian dollars, not New Zealand. And it was fully funded by state and federal grants. Unless something like a provincial fund is willing to fund all of this, I'm worried that this would be another feasibility study that informs but goes nowhere and loses impact somewhere else in our community. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
I'll just respond in terms of the idea of spending money. I guess it's true in the broader sense. If you're saying staff spending some time doing a feasibility study is council money, then that's true. We're not specifically asking for any money within the LTP budget for this piece of work. If it was to be undertaken, it would be done within the work program of staff as they are able to, or we would pursue external sources of funding, which may well bring parties such as the New Zealand Defence Force back into the conversation. And I guess at no point have we said that that's the purpose of this is to advocate or form a position that says council will build a museum. It's really, I guess, giving doing some fact finding so that potential investors could consider some of the options. In terms of your comment around heritage rates, Councillor McInnes, I think from memory, some of the discussion that went around that heritage rate was if we had a dedicated rate, and there's no intention to do it in this long-term plan, I reiterate that if there was such a rate, it could be spent on things specifically for heritage. That was the intention. So it's not a plus. It was within the heritage rate that may give some resourcing to that sector. I think that was part of some of those original conversations, but others were there and could comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, Elizabeth.
I've had a look at the Wairau Museum. Now that had no defence money put to that. That was built obviously a wee while ago, but that was entirely funded by donations, and there was a colonel who went around making a real big effort to fundraise for that. That was his pet project. It has about 100,000 visitors a year. So it's $5 a child, $10 a senior, $15 for an adult. The reason I raise it just gives you an indication of how much money they make and whether that's, functional to for it to be able to be operational on that kind of amount of revenue. In terms of a feasibility study, I do agree with Sophie. I feel that we're seeing a lot of feasibility studies, but then we're not seeing any money put into our history areas in the way that I think they need, and it's just, again, it also sets up a whole lot of hope that we will provide and front up. So from my knowledge, when we had the conversations about that when I was on base years ago, the military at that point do not fund things like this, and they do have, Phil, they do actually have the museum on site, but it's not a museum that the public can access because you've got to go through the front gates and it's the high security area. So it's really just holding the treasures for the future. I love museums personally, but I'm also really realistic that if it's not in an area and it's not going to get the attention and the foot traffic through, we have to be realistic about what's built. And I do think we've got a lot of heritage groups. We should have something that's maybe a combined aspect for them to come together and consider. But I'm also not opposed to maybe the council having a more of a facilitative view with this. And I mean, if you look at Peter Jackson, this is one of the things that he loves to invest in, is military museum stuff. So, whether we have people like that come in behind and support, so that we've got something that's a legacy for the district, and people that leave money in their wills who are and their artifacts as well, and maybe see whether there's something that we grow towards. So it's, we've got something in the pipeline, we've got the ideas coming, and then see what we can gather from externally and just be a part of that assistance program.
Shane.
Kia ora tātou. Te whare utu nei, tēnā koe. E te rangatira mā, e rau mana whenua, rohe o Waikirikiri, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Kei were tātou, kia rātou, lest we forget. Ko Shane apiha tōku ingoa, ngōri ahau o Ngāti Tūmata Uinga. History is a sensitive topic, and what I'm most proud of is having our mana whenua partners in the room to be able to discuss it. There needs some clarity around the. Thank you very much for the report, by the way, and all of the work that's gone into it. I totally support continuing, being that there's no request for budget. We need to understand the taonga that we've been given, and we've discussed in the previous meeting before that we've been gifted a lot of infrastructure as taonga that we inherit and that we continue to invest in. and that will be part of the discussions moving forward. What this particular corridor around this museum I visited the last time that it was presented, I went and had a look at the industrial school, which is what it was set up for naughty boys mostly, and girls. No, I think it was just boys. So went and had a look at the treasure that's in there, or the taonga that's in there. The Defence Force has minimum, I guess, ownership of that because it's a citizens museum. Charlie Upham, all of his gear's in there. Some of our most noted Māori and tangata tiriti soldiers are remembered in such places. And I think certainly we've agreed as a council that we have a place, we have a role in protecting and potentially housing the artefacts in this particular taonga. We've got a number of assets that we're looking at in terms of investment or divestment. So I think it does fit within that particular strategy. It also potentially could be a commercial strategy, a part of a commercial strategy as a museum to provide revenue, but also respecting the other comments around the room and is there a wider space or place for other partners? And I see that the report actually clearly defines that there's the corridor will be with potential partners to support that direction, but certainly I think the overarching is that the council has a responsibility, and we've made that quite clear. What we do now is look into what are the options moving forward, what is the appropriate use of funding and money to be used to support our taonga, our district's taonga. And I just had, sorry, I've got a question. Previously, Leaston made a bid to support housing of this, the Selwyn or Ellesmere Heritage Centre previously. The last long-term plan, I think it was, and I've sent some communication which just noted that I've sent that through to you Mr. Chair, and CEO, that they still would like to be included. The RSA would like to be included for a start. The Ellesmere RSA and the Selwyn Heritage Centre would like to be included, and the offer still stands to be included to protect and house the taonga. Thank you.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. It feels like we're deliberating on an LTP and whether we're going to spend money on it. I'm just wondering what the purpose of the report is, and just for clarity, we're not being asked to make a decision on anything today. This has been an update report for us, and the long-term plan conversation will be the time where we hear from the community around what the next steps might look like. So thank you for the report, and I don't think we need to argue for or against whatever's in here. It's for us to receive. Thank you.
Lydia.
Noting me Sam's conversation, I'll drop a few of my questions, but I guess I'm just questioning whether it's a good use of internal funds to do this feasibility study and yeah, what work would not happen by doing this feasibility study. And the other thing I just note here that it says there is a the draft LTP makes a provision to extend the $50,000 community history funding. Where in the LTP is that, so that people can provide feedback?
I can't comment on where in the LTP it is. I imagine it's within a budget, and there is the intention is to present all of the funding to council as part of its LTP deliberations, and where those different allocations of money are intended or proposed to be spent. So at the moment it will simply be a dollar figure, I guess, against some funding, pending a more fulsome report, and that was scheduled, I think, for maybe May, and it's just been slightly delayed because it's a little bit more complex. Some of the funding arrangements that exist from external sources have been just slightly more complex than we anticipated. We didn't know some of those. Well, the CSF group wasn't aware of some of those funding sources and originally, so it's just delayed somewhat the report that's planned.
Nicola, did you want to comment?
Sorry?
Did you want to comment on that, or?
No,
okay.
I think Denise has covered it.
Okay, Megan.
Yes, on the strategy, the strategic heritage plan, there's 30 action points in there, and this is one of those 30 points. What would be really helpful for me, if this strategy sits with this committee, is some type of understanding of those 30 actions, what's being delivered and what's not being delivered, what's being prioritised, what's not. Because this sits within a wider context.
Nicola did speak to that, and so maybe if you just repeat that point about when they can expect a report to come back and what recommendations it might make.
So we'll be doing a report each year as an annual report, so you can expect that in August, and basically it will look at which of the actions have been progressed and what is being prioritised coming up in the next 12-month period.
Okay, because it seems to me there's been a timing issue here, that we're going to get requests in the long-term plan to fund some things of an action plan that we don't actually have a time frame to deliver. And I'm really mindful that there's several things that are delivering for mana whenua in this action plan. And I don't know who's putting those forward, if they've been framed up for delivery, and who's putting those forward into the long-term plan as a request.
Sorry. So those were sitting there in place with our internal team, so Te Pou Mātaho, and also the work that Puameria was doing. So it was waiting on the opportunity to bring forward mana whenua input into what those actions were going to be and the timing for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicola. Yes.
So they haven't been actioned yet because we did not have a team, Te Pou Mātaho, to actually do any work with mana whenua. So they were put into the plan as more as a holding position until we had a team. We now have a team, so it will now become a priority.
Okay. More questions? I'd like to put that. Do we have a mover and seconder for this?
Sorry, is that,
sorry?
We've got the rest of the report that we were going to be talking about too. That's just one part of it.
Sorry, yeah.
So, do you want to throw it open for comments on the report?
Yeah. Any comments on any part of the report?
Are we going to have someone talking to the play advocate role?
Yeah. That was separate, I thought.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just referred to though.
Okay. Who's going to do that?
So we just want to move that and wrap it
Yeah.
up now. So
Okay. I'd like to move the Executive Director's report. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Malcolm and Sam, all those in favour? Against, carried, thank you. And we'll move on to the Canterbury Museum draft annual plan.
So
and that was Matt.
And just for your reference, when the Canterbury Museum came out to a public excluded meeting last week, the annual plan was attached to that agenda. So you will have received a copy of the draft annual plan, and what Matt's going to talk about is proposed submissions going back in against that plan.
Tēnā koutou. Yes, it's good as a bit of a preamble to say that this was written prior to their presentation. So I think it's nice to acknowledge that the presentation that Canterbury Museum did make did acknowledge a wide range of activities that they're doing in Selwyn, and they are contributing some really nice work in our district. Though I think the intent of this report stands in the sense that that activity that they are doing in Selwyn is largely not included in their annual plan as part of their sort of structured, committed to work plan. The report sort of talks about how there's clearly significant opportunity while the primary Canterbury Museum facility is closed to have a very outward-looking view to the contributing districts who fund the museum to take perhaps a more outreach type view to operations for the next few years. An example of this is they have a KPI, for example, around touring an exhibit to the 4 local council areas. When they presented last week, they spoke that they'd toured 5 touring exhibitions to Selwyn. So there seems like there is a real opportunity to reflect the work that they are already doing in Selwyn within their work plan, because otherwise there is potentially the risk that they do not do that in the future because there is not a commitment within their annual plan to do so. And yes, the report just touches on the fact that Selwyn District Council ratepayers do contribute over $800,000 towards the operations of Canterbury Museum, and the report makes the recommendation that it would not be an unreasonable expectation that Selwyn is more like the contribution to Selwyn is more specifically outlined in the annual plan. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of Matt? Thank you. Sorry. Yes. I'd like someone to move and second the
2
motion.
questions. Shane.
Yeah, I'm happy to move, Mr. Chair, and reasonably comfortable with the presentation last week. But what would have been good was the question that I did ask at the end was the financial implications, and I see that we've got that now. So given their presentation and our word from our representative, Rex, I'm happy to move the report.
Elizabeth?
Yeah. Oh, just a quick question, Matt. I think I noticed somewhere in their presentation last week, but I just wanted to clarify what the wording meant. It indicated that there's a cost for hiring or having the museum artefacts in the libraries and brought over this direction. Do we pay to have things over here?
No, we don't, but we ensure the taonga when they're inside our facilities, that is a cost that council takes on in relation to Te Ara Atea, for example.
Thank you. Phil?
Happy to second. Happy to second, Shane.
Okay. Do you second it? Was it? Okay. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next one is the
Council's role in volunteering.
Oh, yeah, council's role in volunteering, and that's clear, please.
And this was a report that was proposed by the Chief Executive in relation to some feedback around how we celebrate and acknowledge volunteers. So Claire has pulled this report together.
Mr. Chair, can I save some time? It's a well-written report. It seems exceedingly clear. Can I move it and we just move on, or does there need to be discussion on it?
Okay. I have a seconder.
What?
Welcome. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Grant.
What was the proposal? Sorry, I missed
Shane.
that. Oh, yeah. Well, I've got a discussion around point 4, certificate of recognition for individuals who volunteer. We did have a conversation around this, but I didn't realise that it would be brought to our attention that this recommendation here, quite frankly, I'm a bit insulted, really. I mean, what does it cost for us to provide a certificate, turn up, and give recognition to our volunteer fire brigade? It's I spoke to a couple of them yesterday, and they can community consider it a taonga, really. I've
Shane, I
read
think you
something
might
wrong.
have misread the report. It does
Can
still
hold on a minute,
allow that
Grant.
to happen. Sorry.
Denise.
I might have misread that.
The report is not intending to stop acknowledging the contribution that fire service volunteers make to the community. It rather outlines a more streamlined process that allows a broader application of the process. So there's quite a simple, straightforward process that results in a certificate being issued, and it gives some discretion to the councillors in terms of whether or not they choose to be part of the event or not. That's separate to this process.
I just guess what part of it then is the practice is out of step with acknowledging the efforts of other volunteers? I'm just confused as to, we had a discussion about it. We've recognised that we should continue to provide recognition if councillors want to. So I'd just like to get a bit more information about the way forward then.
Sharon, sorry.
Thank you. Part of the reason we've got this paper was that councillors asked me to get the staff to bring a paper about how we reward and recognise volunteering within the district. So in terms of there are different ways and different things occurring. There was a lack of consistency, etc. So the purpose behind the paper was to bring forward some options and opportunities, because we have, I'll use FENS as an example. They have their own recognition and rewards for their FENS members, particularly since the rural and the urban have joined together. So it's not about wanting to diminish any of the volunteers. It's about actually, can we have a consistent approach across the district? Because if you do for one, then by rights, we should be doing it for other volunteering groups, because there are many that provide as an important volunteer service. So the aim of this paper is to look more broadly and suggest and consider some other options, which I think is a good thing to do, rather than single out particular groups. So that was the purpose behind this, and this was at the request of councillors, because we were having ad hoc things happen. And what we're wanting to do is to pull it under one team, and the perfect place for it to sit is within community services, so that we can have a more streamlined approach, but one that is also fair and equitable, perhaps, to consider all of our volunteers, because we also recognise that there is a cost associated. And we also understand that, again, like FENS, St John's as well are very clear about honouring their volunteers and have very specific awards and rewards and recognition. So it's about understanding where councillors see council's role and how they maybe want to take recognition forward in the future.
Thanks, Sharon. Sophie?
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you very much for this report, because I think it's very important to make sure that we're appreciating all our volunteers. So yeah, I welcome the opportunity to do a certificate of recognition for different varieties of volunteers, not just something that comes to FENS. Be interested to see what the criteria are, but I'm sure that isn't a problem. Also great to see that we're going to be doing some more expo type events. We've always had some in the district, but it's good to draw more of these groups together, because we do have a massive cohort of volunteers. I think just about everybody I know volunteers in some shape or form. And it is getting harder to ensure that all the bases are covered and not duplicated. And I think groups could do better by knowing that each other exist as well. So I'm sure this will help with that, as well as covering the bases within what each group does. The only other thing I'm wondering with, and this is not necessary right now, but with regards to the section about Selwyn Awards, it would be really good to understand a bit more about the criteria for the different categories that are listed there. Just because I know from feedback from some of the groups, and I'm not sure if they forwarded this to, given this as feedback following the events. But in some ways, the fact that there's one that says community volunteering, but some people apply, they nominate themselves in multiple categories under a volunteering banner or a business banner within volunteering because they've done corporate volunteering. And it's led some groups that do a lot of good work to feel that they've been edged out by some who've got the time and capacity to promote what they do. And more effectively. So, but that's something for another date because we've got some time before the next Selwyn Awards. But yeah, overall, thank you very much for this. And if anybody hasn't moved or seconded it yet, then I'm happy to do so.
And I'd just say that we're happy to note your comments, Councillor McInnes. We'll make sure that it's much clearer in terms of the awards, and there will be an opportunity. Typically, there's a report that comes to council in preparation for the Selwyn Awards, and so that would be the opportunity for us to highlight the criteria and how we are communicating in that regard.
Moved by Grant and seconded by Sophie. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
There's two people that haven't spoken, Councillor Glidden and Sam.
Okay. Sorry, Lydia.
Yeah, you've forgotten about us, Bob.
Yeah.
I supporting our volunteers. I think that's a really great initiative. My question in this was actually around the Melbourne Community Board Awards, and are they holding community awards this year? Is there budget for it, and are staff assisting with it?
I can't make any comment on that, but I can follow that up and find out whether there's an intention and or budget from the Melbourne Community Board and provide that feedback.
Thank you.
Sam.
Yeah, because I'm keen to have a conversation with Claire about how this will actually work. And you might have shared that with us, but I'm happy that it's been moved and seconded and passed. I can have that conversation offline with you around the requests that I end up getting and councillors will end up getting around this and how that process will actually work, because we need to have that as smooth and working, with you as possible.
Okay, thank you. We go on to the play advocate role.
Bob.
Sorry. Not Elizabeth, sorry.
Yeah. I'll be quick. Everyone's leaving. So Claire, I just wanted to say, I think the certificate's great, and Grant did talk about whether it's framed or not in the last time we just brought this to the table. At the moment, it just says certificate. But one of the things that it would be good to give some consideration is the difference between someone who does 1 or 2 years volunteering versus someone who does 25 years. And it would be nice if there was sort of an additional recognition for those who have done a certain, like we do with wedding anniversaries. If you get to silver or gold, it's a little more special. It would be nice if we kind of have that element to this protocol.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really for people that have done an extensive period of time or have individually achieved something of great significance to Selwyn in the social, cultural, environmental wellbeing for those certificates. So we'll definitely be looking at that criteria.
Thank you. Okay, James and Bridie.
James and Adele.
Yeah. Oh, Adele. Sorry.
I'll load that up, mate.
Just get the document. Just got it. Yes, got it here. So if we go back to the Zoom meeting, things like that here. So just go into where's the yeah, there it is, share screen. Yeah, now fill up that.
Kia ora everyone. While we load the presentation up, it's my pleasure to introduce Adele Orangi. Adele is the first play advocate for Selwyn District Council. I'm not going to steal her thunder too much. She's going to talk a little bit about the role and how it's funded, but you would have seen in the report that Sport New Zealand have funded this role. The purpose of today's presentation is to really just tell you a bit about the background to why the role exists and what Adele's up to in her role. So I'll pass over to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. So here we go. So Sport NZ defines play as the foundation for physical literacy. It's unstructured, often child-led, but it's more than just playgrounds. It's more than just reserves. It's more than just tracks and trails. It's for everyone. It's everywhere, and it's the foundation for community building. As James alluded to, the position is fully funded by Sport NZ. It's a 2-year fixed role. It's part-time, and Selwyn District Council was in the second cohort. So there were 5 already announced a year and a half ago, and we've come on board as the second cohort. We are now, Canterbury is covered. So, oh, is that mine? Just. So there are play leads and play advocates at Sport Canterbury, the Christchurch City Council and Waimakariri District Council. So Canterbury is covered. The role was funded mainly because play is in decline. Research indicates that we have busier lives, and that's adults and children, that we have smaller sections, so there's less space to play. There are health and safety concerns, mainly by adults, about children going out to play. There are less neighbourhood connections. There's a lot more technology, which keeps us inside and busy. And there's also a lack of awareness of the benefits of play. And with that, adults can be the biggest barrier or the biggest enablers. Part of what I hope to achieve is to add value to current, future programs, projects, events and venues that Selwyn District Council has. My aim is to have connected resilience within the communities and utilising the fantastic area that Selwyn is, and the opportunities are unbelievable. I feel that it's best done within utilising the other teams and helping them and adding value to what they already do. And the main thing is about protecting, preserving and promoting play within the region. So you may wonder what the benefits of play are, and doesn't everybody just play? Well, physical literacy, which I noted at the start, develops not only physical development, but also cognitive, creative, social and emotional development within children. And these skills are the foundation for learning, but also sport and rec. And so it is really, really important that the children get this good foundation. I think the most important thing about play is it's fun. And when we see people having fun or being playful, we're more likely to want to do that ourselves. So last year we had National Play Week, and I wanted to celebrate Selwyn. So throughout the week, we did Skate Your Park, so encourage people to attend their local skate park, explore Kakaha Park and learn to ride a bike, utilise the Leuno Wall, which is at the Sports Centre, introduce disc golf. We wandered the Willows and encouraged people to utilise this sort of hidden gem, utilise the Manu platform, and we introduced pickleball up in Darfield, which led to more have-a-go sessions up there. And from that, a local has acquired funding to get equipment, and now West Melton have got regular sessions on a Friday night. I gained insights from participants, both young and old, because this was for any age to attend Play Week. We wanted to sort of find out what they currently do, what they want to do, and what were the barriers to that sort of thing. The data helps us inform things like who, what, where, and how we deliver play and active rec throughout the region and in the future. A couple of the more sustainable and strategic things that I'm looking to do is, one is called the National Neighbourhood Play Systems, which is done by Sport NZ and done through the regional sports trusts and the councils. And this is a process that focuses on a 1K radius of a school and gathers data regarding the playability of that area. The school's the anchor, and we include students, community, and whānau in gathering information about how the students get to and from school. Do they play on the way? What do they like to do in their community? Where do they go? How do they play in and out of school hours? Are there barriers, or is there room for improvement? The report that is gathered, the information that's gathered, gives a play context to the town. And we're currently looking to work in Leaston with the Leaston Primary School, which will hopefully inform information that will lead to help us with Waihora Whatarau and their developments there. The other one is Play Streets, which is done within conjunction with Waka Kotahi Reshaping Streets. And this sort of makes it easier for local communities to work with council and temporarily restricting traffic for a couple of hours on a local quiet street or cul-de-sac that allows tamariki to play and communities to connect. You may think that this is something that we did back in the day, and does it not still happen? Not really. It doesn't happen as much as it used to. They're small resident-led local gatherings, and they only happen in daylight hours. They're not publicly promoted, and it's for the whānau on that street. Sadly, the reason that these need to come back and are encouraged to come back in is because we don't know our neighbours anymore. We don't know who's across the street. Is it okay and safe for my children to play outside? We have less time and money to go to local amenities. And so by playing outside, it's closer, and it also helps those children who are starting to gain independence. It's definitely something that they are trialling throughout the country. And as you can see here, some great examples of it. So I guess my question to you is, will you join me in being a play champion for your area?
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Adele. Happy to take any questions.
Elizabeth?
That was awesome. My ideation's been firing on all cylinders through that. I used to work with kids with high needs, and there's a group called Sunshine Soccer. Are you familiar with it?
No.
Yeah, the thing with Sunshine Soccer is it was only for teenagers, and so there wasn't anything in the district that was available for high needs kids, autism spectrum, etc. locally. So just pointing that out. Also, I loved when they did the sports drive, and you could donate your sports equipment. It could be reused for a family that needed but couldn't afford. I see that Christchurch City Council's got Give Gear Get Great. Wondering if we could look at doing that here, because my kids grow out of stuff and I would like to be able to pass that on. And also I know that up north where I come from, there was a real big enthusiastic movement with the post-pregnancy ladies that could come along and do activities and bring their babies too. And I'm not sure if that's facilitated here, but I know that that's something that people would love to have. So yeah, and I love the Play Street thing, because that was what we used to do back in the day, isn't it? With the skipping ropes and everything else. So yeah, really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. And it's good to see that from your report that you're working with key agencies like Sport Canterbury and Selwyn Sports Trust. I literally had written a little note myself on the page before and asking to ask if you're looking at the Selwyn Sports Trust. So it's good that you're working in with that. Now, talking about your neighbourhood play system, so I assume as part of what you're looking at is just basic things like how easy it is, like footpaths and stuff like that. So they've got routes that they can go to get to and from places?
Yes, and also, you know, looking and they sort of say, well, we don't go down that street because it's all covered in bush and we don't feel safe. So, you know, trim back the bushes sort of thing. So it is looking at and getting the child's voice as well as adults. I do know, obviously, Leaston, a lot of those kids do get on the bus as well. And so what options do they have?
Oh no, that's good that you're looking at the wider thing. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, because ideally in our communities, our most vulnerable should be able to get around, and this is something that I've banged on again about from before when I was on, before even being on council. It's really hard as you're an adult, an able-bodied adult, to understand how hard it is for others to get around. So it's really good to see these initiatives, and hopefully it then leads to where we as a council can accommodate that and make sure, because we do want everyone to be able to enjoy living where we are and being able to contribute to our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Phil?
I think Sophie was before me.
Oh, Sophie, okay.
Yeah, kia ora, Adele. I guess first question is, where do I sign up? Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you very, very much. Really glad to see the work that you've been doing and will continue to do. The only question I have is, you've mentioned Selwyn Sports Trust. Just wondering if you've hooked up with Selwyn Parenting Network at all as well, because this is the sort of thing that they would absolutely be interested in supporting and helping to promote or engage with various parents as well. And
I have. Oh, sorry.
No, the other part was around play streets. So I am absolutely for play streets. I've seen them done well in other parts of the country. That said, I and my children, we live on a busy street, so there's absolutely no way that anyone's going to close our street off to let the kids play. So I guess finding a way of including kids who live away from a street that, so they're not far out of that street, but this would apply for instance, in rural areas as well. It'd be nice to have something that they can be invited to as well, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. I guess my and James, I'll just have to show you. I'm wearing sports socks today.
The agility on the man.
Sports and things all over my feet.
You should really tuck that all the time.
I should do. I just wanted to say that before I get into the performing arts platform. I guess gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, theatre sports, dance, that's all mechanisms of play. They're all underrepresented in things that this council support. So it's a question that I'll be asking you a lot: is how is your play involving those areas of play too?
In short, at the moment, yes, it is. But Adele's role is really about advocating for the usage. It doesn't necessarily have to be a council-led program. So it's about understanding at the moment what's being delivered in the community and enabling that to push forward. So, for example, in the gymnastics space, Adele's visited the mini gym sessions that we facilitate as part of the Selwyn Sports Centre, Lincoln Event Centre, and given some feedback about how that program's run.
Adele, through your manager, I'd love to give you through some of the play sessions that we have, including play, which is actually a theatre play group, and they're massive. Also, Aurora Dance, who's probably the biggest dance group in South Island now, plus there's the rhythmic gym and with theatre sports and the various places that theatre sports are done taken for the kids that can't kick a ball.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Lydia?
As a parent of a small child, I know how much children like to play, and I end up spending a fair amount of my time playing too, which is also quite fun. And my question is are you looking to deliver this sort of stuff in just the main urban areas, or are you looking to branch out into rural as well? And how do you make the streets safe for play? Just noting that, there's some silly people around that don't obey the road rules and
true.
Yeah.
So yes, all over Selwyn. I was up with the EdgeConnector van, getting some data from up sort of Lake Coleridge Way and finding out how far they'd be prepared to go, and what's different for them than obviously a lot of families in Rolleston. So we are gathering data from all over and prepared to encourage playful activities all over. And sorry, what was the other question?
How do you make the streets safe?
So it is done with council, and there's like a 2-barrier, generally a low traffic street or a cul-de-sac off a main road. And then there is 2 barriers, and there would be somebody that's stationed at that barrier.
Cool. I look forward to seeing what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for your report. I was thinking about what you were talking about with the kids playing on the roads and that, and it's something as a kid was always happening. I haven't seen it for years, but only last week our local little street all got together, and all the kids got together and they played ball on the street, and it was quite strange. I hadn't seen it for years, and it was amazing how much fun even the parents had out looking after the kids on the street. So I hope we see more of that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to move and second report? Elizabeth and Sam, all those in favour? Against, carried. Okay, we'll have a break now till 3 o'clock for the Selwyn Youth Council to come. So, thank you. 3 o'clock.
If they come sooner, we'll bring
We'll-
it back
we'll-
in.
we'll bring it forward
But they're
if we
coming
need.
from school and places, so
Yes.
they're coming as fast as they can.
Yeah.
But if you come back earlier, we definitely try.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about
Okay, thank you for coming in. Welcome to our council meeting, and I'll ask Mackenzie to introduce your group.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Wills and I am Chair of the Selwyn Youth Council. So I have some of the members of the Selwyn Youth Council alongside me today, and we are just going to give you a little overview. So we're going to go through meeting our members, and then an introduction of you guys, and then what we've been up to so far, plans for 2024, and then our new game, Supermare. So meeting our members. So I'm just going to flip through some slides here so you guys can see who we are and a little bit of information about us. So I'll just flick through these for you and you can have a read. So this is Amber. Or should I flick? Right, wonderful. So as you can see, we've got a lot of members this year. So now we're going to ask to meet you guys. So we've got a couple of questions here. So your name, your ward, your passions or interests, what you wanted to be most when you grew up, and your favourite moment of being a counsellor, and then any words of wisdom. So we'll just go around the table and we'll just get you guys to share with us. That would be great. Thank you.
Malcolm.
That's a long list of questions. Hi guys, I'm Malcolm. I'm the Deputy Mayor. I've been doing this for around about 20 years. What did I want to be when I grew up? I decided I'd get a trade, be an electrician, because I could travel the world with it and earn. I haven't travelled the world with it, but I'm still an electrician. Favourite things being a counsellor? Oh, there's many. Doing things for the community, getting things established. There's too many to mention, really. And today I'm really enjoying being youth adjacent because I'm adjacent to the youth.
And Malcolm does really good dad jokes too. I'm Lydia. I met most of you last week at Selwyn Youth Council. Yeah, so I'm from the Melbourne ward, and my passions and interests, I really enjoy being outside. Anything outside is me and my happy place. And when I was a little girl, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a vet, and I never actually did that. Instead, I just collected animals for the farm. So it's a menagerie there. And I think my most favourite thing about being a counsellor is actually just being able to help people and guide them in the right way. And if that being in this place can open doors and do things for people, then that's really great. And I think my words of wisdom would be follow your gut. I think, yeah, deep down you know what's right. So yeah.
Hello, my name's Phil Dean. I'm from Rolleston. My interest is in the performing arts space, which I really enjoy that, and that's would have been the thing that I would like to have done more than anything else when I was growing up, and I've kind of lived half of that life. It's been my side jam for so long. The most exciting things I've done here is I enjoyed collaboration, and I've really enjoyed working with you, Mackenzie, on the representation review, and Molly as well. And every now and then, those two worlds come together. And if Ben Braid comes into this room here, we always ask him to dance, and that's kind of a nice thing. Advice: know what your superpower is.
Thanks, Phil. Kia ora koutou. I'm Sam, the Mayor of Selwyn. I live in Darfield and used to be a ward councillor for Melvin before I became the Mayor. My passions and interests, my daughter was just here before she left, so spending time with her and Liz, who walked in the door to take her away. I also enjoy motorbiking and playing the guitar and watching sport. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I think because I wanted to go to the moon, and that was kind of like the path to take to become an astronaut, was to join the Air Force. And then when I was in high school, the New Zealand Air Force sold off their fastest, best jets that weren't great on the world stage, but were the best thing we had. And so that destroyed my dream of really wanting to be a jet fighter pilot. So I became a youth worker and then became the Mayor. My favourite moments, I can remember some disappointments. I really wish I'd got trees put down the centre of the main road in Darfield when Waka Kotahi was redoing the main street about 10 years ago. And I look back and I just didn't quite know the relationships or the functions to get that outcome and hadn't started early enough on that outcome. But I have enjoyed so many moments being on this council. Probably opening Te Ara Atea was key amongst them. And words of wisdom, just don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. The ability for you to bring your passion and ideas to life is what I think life needs to be about. And I think too often I've found myself in spaces where I'm the youngest in a group. And sometimes I'm just really frustrated by that because everyone else seems like they don't get me. And now I'm 42. So I'm old and want to be creating spaces for you. So don't ever feel like you don't have anything to contribute because of your age. Yeah.
Kia ora koutou, ko Megan Mackay tōku ingoa. I am the Mana Whenua representative on council. I didn't know that Sam wanted to be an astronaut, and I'm a director of a aerospace company, so we'll talk afterwards. Yeah. Make your dreams come true. So Mana Whenua for this region is Ngāi Toa Huriri and Ngāi Te Reo Hekeheke Hapu. And so I'm representative for Ngāi Te Reo Hekeheke, and you might have, through looking at your school list, visited our marae, which is Ngāti Moki out at Taumitu. That's where Paul Media and I are both from. We also have in common that we have children who have been on Selwyn Youth Council. So Paul Media is mother to Awhioraki, and my daughter Adia was on youth council about 5 years ago, and then my son came on for 2 years after her. And Adia had a really conventional leadership pathway, being prefect and all of that, whereas my son Khan didn't. So this gave him a opportunity that I hope that you have, And for him, his next steps was to be a community member on a water zone committee for ECAN. And so he continued with that in that regional council leadership space. So encouraging that for you guys as well to consider where your next steps would go. I'm looking forward to hearing more about you and where you see what opportunities there are for future leadership of Selwyn Youth Council. What did I want to be when I was little? I wanted to be a psychologist or psychiatrist, and that's because every Friday night I would go to the street parties and I'd sit in the kitchen and listen to all the gossip that the adults had. And so I was a little kid that sat quietly in the corner and I found out all the gossip. And I thought, well, if I was a psychiatrist or psychologist, I'll find out more. Quickly discovered as an adult, I'm not that great with people, so I became a lawyer instead. So I have no words of wisdom. I'm relatively new here, so I'm figuring it out myself and what it all looks like, but really keen to hear and learn more about you guys.
Yeah, Bob Mugford, I'm from Melbourne Ward. My passions or interests are cars and cars and cars. What did I want to be when I grew up? Well, actually, my parents had decided that they had a job for me. I was to carry on after my father retired. So it was anything but that at that stage. And I've always been interested in houses, so I decided to go become a joiner. I think the best moment of being a councillor was the day that everyone here signed off the wastewater plant to Darfield. I think that's the one big thing that has been really great for our community and will be in the future. So that was a big day. And any words of wisdom is just stick with what you think you want to do and go ahead and do it, because the world's your oyster at this age to look at things you want to do and stick with them. Thanks.
Hello, sorry I was late coming in. So I'm Nicole Reid. This is my third term on council. I am a representative for the Rolleston ward. Passions and interests. I enjoy tramping, swimming. I actually do a bit of handcraft, embroidery and stuff. And I've recently started playing golf. I'm pretty crap, but it's a good walk around outside, and I've got some good friends that I play with. What did you want to be when you grew up? So I heard Sam come in and say that he wanted to be a pilot. Actually, that was something I wanted to do, and I actually did apply for the Air Force and got into a selection thing for that, but didn't get any further. So that would have been if I'd got in doing university qualification at the same time as doing that. But I still continued and did university, and have been back to university later on. My favourite moment is being a councillor. I suppose there's been a few. I'm just thinking about being involved with Te Aratia and seeing what that was like when it opened. But more recently, one that I really enjoyed was actually being involved with the Greater Christchurch Partnership, the spatial plan hearings. And a big moment for us on the panel was actually seeing the youth come and talk to us. So Mackenzie, you came along and talked to us, and I don't have the other. And that was such a good day listening to what you guys had to say. And so hopefully you will continue to advocate through your lives doing that sort of thing. We all start from somewhere, maybe not as young as what you guys are, but us at the time, I can't really speak for everyone else, but myself I stood for council because I could see that I was more effective to be at the table. I actually had one of the councillors who was there at the time had said to me that I wanted to be part of the discussion because I was sitting in the public space. I needed to be sitting at the table, and this is where is a good way to make decisions, is to be at the table. And it's so great that you guys are doing what you're doing, because then you actually see what it's like, and maybe it's not as scary as what it would have appear originally. And that's me.
Good afternoon. My name's Grant Miller. I represent the Springs Ward, which is Lincoln, Prewarden, Springston. My passions and interests, my family and my wife. I'm interested in winding up my wife. I quite enjoy that. She bites easily. I'm good at fishing, not just a fish, but I just wound in the CEO before. That was quite good. Easy catch. But when you ask what you wanted to be when you grew up, my children are just at that stage where, much like you, where a lot of you, particularly in year 13, being asked all the time, what are you going to do when you grow up? I don't think that's a great question, because it inevitably puts pressure on you to make some sort of conscious decision now about what your future might look like, which is great if you can. But I think you're better off developing a whole range of skills which give you the opportunities to be good at a lot of things. And don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself into one little space and think, I can only do this, no, I can only do that. So don't limit yourself to one thing about what you want to do when you grow up. Just develop a whole lot of skills which give you the opportunity to be a range of anything. And you might find the career you end up in is not where you thought you would when you started. And if you look at this, people around this table, there's a real disparate skill set, and they've all come from all walks of life. But what they've all recognised is they want to contribute through public service and making their community better. And so the skills that you develop, and particularly the Youth Council, will be really helpful for that. My favourite moment of being councillor is many. One of the things that I really enjoy, and I think most of the councillors do, is going to citizenship ceremonies and seeing the look on people's faces when they become citizens of New Zealand. And it's one of those things that we take for granted, that we live in a free and democratic society where you can basically do as you please as long as you obey the rules. That's foreign to some of the people that come here, and I've been in quite restrictive communities and challenging lifestyles. And to come here and live in a community like New Zealand is quite liberating, and sometimes you don't realise what you've got until you see people like that. In an infrastructure space, on a local Springs Ward level, the Tairāpu Community Centre was a great achievement for the community and the council, because it brought together the best of both, where the community really pitched in and raised a lot of money and was really passionate about doing something, and was enabled by the council. So that enabling function of council is really important. And the last thing is the building across the road, the health hub, the ability to have our own community having their own children and their own medical services within Selwyn was an outstanding result and I'm really proud of that. Words of wisdom, probably relative to what I said earlier, but make sure you be yourself. Go out of your way not to conform, because particularly your age, there's a lot of pressure on you to conform to some social media driven image of what success looks like. And I think by joining the Youth Council, you've already broken the mould, because you've stepped outside your comfort zone. You've done something different, and you should always treasure the fact that you're unique, and that being a facsimile of what other people think you should be is not what you should aspire to. Aspire to be the best person that you are.
Deborah Hassan, Springs Ward Councillor. Been around this table for 28 and a half years. Prior to that, I was involved in 5.5 years on what some people might call the darker side, which is actually an employee of council. Not this council, but Christchurch City Council and Waimarie District Council. With regards to passions and interests, I probably was the non-conformer. I left school at 18 to travel the world with a pack on my back. And I always remember celebrating my 19th birthday, watching the diving off Acapulco. So imagine actually going and seeing that from a small town like Greymouth in New Zealand. I was fortunate in my travels and the experiences that I gained, the friends I made, and coming back to New Zealand, I always wanted to work with animals. That was my passion. So I studied at university, ticked zoology off the box, and then my passion switched while I was actually employed at council to being more community focused. So I started filling some voids with being a community volunteer before being elected to council. So it's been a very, very rewarding journey. Every one of your journeys will be totally different. But if you do get to travel overseas and understanding what democracy is about in New Zealand, you will have many, many young people actually come up and want what you've got. So just highlighting democracy is very, very precious when you realise when you travel to some countries overseas that just don't have it. So I guess that's my words of wisdom. I've gone a bit overboard. So what do I want to be when I grow up? Never really thought about it because I had a free spirit. And I was supported in my free spirit. So I could become anything that I chose that I felt like being at the time. And my most favourite moment of being a councillor, there has been several, but it feels really, really, really good when you have a report on the council agenda and you take on board everybody's views and the report turns out to need a wider recommendation than what's on there and you actually get to change something or be part of that change. So I'll put it mildly, being correct or being right actually gives you a lift in what you're doing with the decision-making process. So that's it from me. But I wish you luck in your future adventures where you're going.
Wonderful, thank you. Oh, sorry.
We've just got Sophie.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is that me?
Yes, it's you.
Yes, it's you,
Yes.
Sophie.
Sorry.
Yep.
Oh, I can't see who's around the table, so I wasn't sure. Okay. Most of you know me vaguely anyway. So, called Sophie McInnes Tokuingwa. I live in Rolleston. I'm one of the Rolleston ward councillors. Passions and interests, swinging between sort of reading. I love reading books when I can find a time, or going for walks in random places out in the countryside, exploring. It's always good. What I wanted to be when I grew up. I think I wanted to be something between a writer or an explorer. Yeah, it's flexible, and that's kind of a good thing. Favorite moment being a councillor. I enjoy continual favorite moments when I go out with my kids or community groups and we're using council facilities or reserves and things like that. So my little ones love going to Te Ara Atia, and I think about how fantastic it is that we actually have that facility as a freely available public facility every time we go there. And as Grant mentioned, the health hub across the road, that is fantastic as well. My eldest visits there regularly for CAF, and until that was built, there was nowhere for CAF in Selwyn, so I'm very glad that it is local now. And another favourite moment actually was, so Megan mentioned about water zone committees, and and I'm on the Selwyn one with her son Khan these days. But previously there was a young man from the Ikan Youth Ropu, which is the equivalent of Selwyn Youth Council, on the Christchurch West Melton Water Zone Committee, and he's still there. But I remember the very first meeting that he took part in, and he was fantastic because he was probably the youngest person in the room by a good 15, 20 years, and he didn't tolerate any crap. And he was quite happy to call out the old people who were just not making any decisions that were going to be benefiting future generations. And I thought that was fantastic. So I try to hold that in my head when we're making discussions if I can. It can be hard though, because I am old. And as far as words of wisdom, don't let yourself be defined by your grades at high school or whatever qualifications or jobs you have early on. Things change, new things come along. I don't think it's something to be necessarily proud of to stay in exactly the same job or employer all the time for most of your life anymore. You can be the best version of yourself if you keep following and changing and growing. And yeah, you're all awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of those words of wisdom with us and letting us get to know you a bit better. So now we're kind of just going to give you a brief overview of what we've been up to in the later part of 2023 to now. So I'll start off with recruitment. So last year in October, we started our recruitment drive for the team we have this year. Myself, Lincoln and Molly, we were the 3 co-chairs last year, and we decided that we wanted to do it a little bit differently, and we wanted to conduct interviews with everyone who had applied. So this originally was not something that the Selwyn Youth Council did. You used to just apply, and they liked the look of your application, you were on. And we decided that we wanted to meet everyone face to face, get to know them a bit better, ask them questions, and we found that this was a really good way of actually knowing who was joining our council. So we ended up with a lot of applicants last year, one of the largest intakes that we've had. So we're very excited about that, and I'm glad that we have such a wide representation now. So the interviews definitely worked really well, and we're very glad that we changed it and conducted these interviews. And yeah, so that was really exciting for us. So our Super Mea game. So last year we introduced the concept of a game we'd been developing in collaboration with Ben from Invaded Games. This game originated from an engagement event we hosted, which highlighted the lack of civics knowledge within our community and within young people. Our aim with this game is to showcase the decision-making process within council and emphasise the importance of weighing cost against community voice, support and needs. This game is now in its final stages with a playable demo already released. We're gearing up for a full launch on April 21st, which is the first weekend of the holidays. At the conclusion of today's session, we're hoping to offer you the opportunity to experience the game firsthand. We believe it's not only educational but also incredibly engaging, so we look forward to showing you all how cool our game truly is. So now I'm going to pass over to Bhavya to talk about our meetings and trainings.
Our first Selwyn Youth Council meeting for 2024 took place in February, where we dedicated the day to getting to know other councils and who was supporting us and discussing the purpose of our group and goals. And we also had the chance to go around the council and meeting you guys and other important representatives for council. We have representatives in a group known as Youth Voice Canterbury, which has representatives from multiple youth advocate groups. I can't pronounce that. Our first session for 2024 was hosted by Christchurch Youth Council and saw participations from multiple other youth councils, which we went to. We see these sessions as they are very valuable as they provide us with opportunities to engage with our peers, discuss and compare themes and trends, and explore potential collaborations and projects at this recent collaboration on the Initiative Youth Takeover Survey, which we'll talk about in the next slide.
So as Barbia mentioned, we're currently engaging through the Youth Takeover Survey, which has gone out to all the YVC groups. So YVC is made up of all the kind of youth councils and youth organisations in Canterbury. So we make up YVC. And the survey includes a wide range of information, so politics, important issues, and kind of what the community wants to see as a whole. Our collective goal is to get at least 300 responses to the survey, and we still have a few more weeks for the survey to remain live. Once we have gathered the findings, this will allow us to identify key issues or key things that our community thinks is missing, which will then help us inform other initiatives going further. In addition to this, we've been supporting the council with engagements on Piki Amakura, which is Sawan Youth Strategy. One highly effective tool that we've been using at events like Children's Day is the Spin the Wheel. So this has been really cool to see everyone kind of coming along and really wanting to use this tool. So we asked that they first fill out the survey, and then once they filled out the survey, they get a chance to spin the wheel, and there was multiple prizes. This worked really well at Children's Day, and we ended up having to go and buy more prizes halfway through the day. So it was great to see kind of everyone getting really excited about this, and we gathered over 300 surveys throughout Children's Day, which was really exciting for us. And yeah, that is kind of those engagements as of now. So I'll pass over to William to talk about this one.
We've been thinking creatively about how we could better use the Youth Project Fund, as it hasn't really been fully utilised. We've also been dealing with issues of like fluctuating attendance at free programs, which we think is a mixture of free not really signifying like value, and without payments there's not really much commitment to those who do want to come. To tackle this, we tried something new: hardship payment options for certain courses run by the Selwyn District Council and the Selwyn Youth Council. This meant charging a fee, but also letting youth reach out if they couldn't afford it. This approach has worked well, we believe, especially with our learner license courses. With only 5 people while only 5 people use the hardship option, now over 17 have the learner's license. In fact, I even attended this course, and just yesterday I got my learner's license. It shows that our efforts to remove barriers to participation in events where required are making a difference. We have had some comments, such as, "My son, new from South Africa in the country for 3 months, joined the class for Saturday and passed his learners. Thank you so much. We are so appreciative, and my son and wife thanks you sincerely." And also, "I would like to send my child onto the Leaston course, but we are struggling with funds. Is there maybe an option to pay off after 2 weeks, $50 and $45 the next week? If not possible, I understand. I will try and make another plan. Thanks for your time." That concludes hardship payments.
Awesome. During the summer period, we collaborated with the council, the youth, and the cultural development to organise several youth events. At the Dartford Pool Party, we were thrilled to welcome over 250 attendees. Additionally, at the Springfield Pool Party, we equally enthusiastically turned out with over 150 participants. We've also organised another successful 3vs3 basketball event, which drew in more than 100 people. One particularly memorable moment was witnessing the pride and enjoyment on the faces of the winning team, who got the opportunity to play against the Canterbury Rams. The excitement was truly priceless and reflected the efforts of our efforts in creating engaging and enjoyable youth events.
Right, so I'm now going to run you over some of our plans for 2024. So obviously we're going to continue to utilise these strategies, and we're wanting to use these to help inform future projects for the year, and just utilise them in a way that lets us understand that we are actually giving the community what they see that they need and what fits kind of what they're looking for. We also want to continue to help activate the Selwyn Youth Hub, but acknowledge that transport is a real issue for our peers, so activations may need to be hosted more widely throughout the district. But also acknowledge the hub as being critical in supporting organisations through lowering barriers to venture out to then send further into Selwyn. So transport's definitely something that we'll be looking at this year. We will also be looking at continuing the youth activations with these organisations. We've had a huge uptake in the events alongside with youth cultural development, so we're definitely looking at utilising them again throughout this year to really bring in the numbers to our events. We will also be continuing at offers for adults, working with or parenting young people. Decoding the Puzzle, Understanding Addiction is a parent workshop on addiction with a specific focus on the alarming rise of vaping and device use amongst young people. This presentation will delve into the underlying factors that drive young people to experiment with alcohol, drugs, and vaping, and why we become addicted to things that aren't good for us. You'll find out how to recognise the subtle signs and indicate your child may be engaging in potential addictive behaviours. Learn strategies to effectively address the issue if you're determined that they are, and come away with practical tools to help you teach them how to foster healthier device habits. This workshop is an essential opportunity to safeguard your children's wellbeing and combat addictions in their lives. We've also seen a huge uptake in the parenting sessions that are usually held down at the Youth Hub, and know that the parents are really finding them useful to connect more with the young people in our community. So that's also really positive. And then getting promotion right. The success of all of this relies on getting our promotion right. We will continue to explore, understand, and deliver appropriately to youth, which we believe we're getting better with, especially through some of our partnerships like Fresh, who have a very good design appeal to youth. We're also looking at our marketing strategies and how we use our social media to reach the right group of young people. At our last meeting, we did a little bit of table discussion around how we know that Facebook's usually for parents, and how our Instagram and TikTok is more for youth, and how we look at using those platforms differently to connect with youth and kind of make sure we're still connecting with parents, but kind of bring it away and more be directly targeted to young people. So we'll be doing that further. Okay. I think you guys are going to close the formalities and then we're going to do our game.
Thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us today. It's always good to hear what the youth have to say, and we do take notice of it. And we hope we'll see you back in the near future with another very professional presentation. Thank you. I'd like to close the meeting.
Can I say a couple of
Yes, sure.
Just and thank you for what you've presented. And there's just a couple of opportunities, and they've been raised with us, and I just want to be able to continue the advocacy. One is around driver's licensing, which you raised, and the ability to set your restricted license in Selwyn currently just isn't here. And so we're trying to work with Waka Kotahi on that. It'd be helpful to think about how we do that together, and so that there's been individuals that aren't part of the Youth Council talking to us about it, but actually having the Youth Council voice as a part of that conversation. If you're willing, we'd love to have you a part of that. And the second is public transport, which you raised again in your conversation. And at the moment, Environment Canterbury is responsible for the public transport piece, but as a council, we know that our community needs more than what ECAN's currently providing. And so there's a conversation about and around Rolleston service to collect, it's 5 kilometres by 5 kilometres and no meaningful public transport to get around Rolleston, but also to connect in Leiston and Darfield and the townships on the way to get to Rolleston is another piece of that conversation. So we would welcome your submissions to our long-term plan on how that looks. And I'd also be keen to for you to come with me to ECAN to talk to their long-term plan about what they need to provide for our community. And it's normally during the day for them is the only thing. But I'd quite happily come and pick you, as many of you up as you want in a van. We'll van in there together, turn up en masse and talk about how poor the public transport is to be able to come and even submit to their public transport forum on the future of things. So if that suits anyone, we can follow through on that conversation, Mackenzie. And also to say you've done an excellent job at advocating for Rolleston College and the second campus.
Thank you.
And yeah, well done on being very articulate and clear about the needs of education for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Sharon, sorry.
Thank you, Bob. I just wanted to add, it's a pleasure to see you again. I've had the pleasure of meeting you previously. I'm just interested, when we first met, we talked about your desire to have more interactions with councillors around this table and more active participation. Have you got any further thoughts? Because it's a really good opportunity, or maybe I'm putting you on the spot, and forgive me if I have done that. But and I appreciate that the council meeting times don't necessarily always work best for you in terms of schooling, but is that something that you still continue to desire to explore?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And we thank you for letting us come and talk to you today. Was my microphone on? Oh, yeah. And yeah, it's definitely something that we want to look into further and getting to work alongside you guys more. So yeah, thank you for that opportunity.
No, and so I'll just elaborate a little bit further in that they're quite keen to actually come and sit around the table with you for some council meetings, and to explore the appetite of councillors to be able to support that, because it, as you know, when we're in the full throw of a council meeting, it's quite a different feel, and it's possibly potentially a good experience. So,
Megan.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if this is really the forum to be, talking or engaging, so I'm just going to go for it because there hasn't been other forums. But certainly the feedback that I received from both of my children was, and it could have changed substantially, was that the Selwyn Youth Council was primarily about supporting Selwyn events and attending events, and that was not what they signed up for. They signed up for wanting to know more about what a district council does and the role of council and the role of council within community, and potentially providing youth voice into the functions and services of council. And so it's good to hear that there might be ideas around maybe potentially coming and being part of this group more. But I think it would go more than that, which is actually that when you start your term and when you leave your term, you actually understand the role and function of council. And I want to know, to what extent do you get to do that or participate?
I think it has definitely changed since your children have been on, potentially. Obviously, working through this game has also allowed us to kind of learn a bit more about what council does, but also we reviewed our terms of reference recently last year to make sure that those were a bit more clear about what people were signing up for. While there is a lot of opportunities to attend events and support community events, I think especially with the youth strategy, that's definitely changing. While we were at an event, we were also getting to talk to community about the council and what we do alongside the council. So I think, we do actually get to learn about a lot about what the council does, and having Lydia and Sophie at our meetings also does help with that, as they're able to feed in knowledge of, if we're bringing up something or we're talking about a strategy that we want to do, they can help support us with that, and in terms of what support we can get from council, for sure.
Thank you, Megan. Phil?
Yeah, I was just going to, I wanted to just recognise your involvement as a youth council and the great advocacy that your two representatives have had on the representation review. Molly McKenzie have come along, and I think they've participated in our formal meetings at this table. It's a bit of a different environment, isn't it, Mackenzie?
Yeah, for sure.
And but your representatives were there with ward councillors. You're there with representatives of the community board with an equal voice. And so we made decisions on the way that democracy is going to exist as we go forward. Now we're going to be make recommendations back to council, and then we made a recommendation. We made a decision about how we were going to consult with the wider community. Well, you guys had a huge part in that, and so if you ever get a chance to put your name up and the opportunity comes up to be representative of that sort of thing, yeah, I don't think was it as scary as it looked.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
Lydia.
That's good. Yeah, thanks, Phil, because that's what I was going to bring up as well. And I'd actually completely forgotten about that. That was actually one of my proudest moments, is getting Mackenzie and Molly to the representation review and having you have a voice and a vote around the table. I thought was actually pretty exciting for Selwyn to move into that space, and the views that you brought to the table were really valuable and knowledgeable, and you articulate yourself extremely well. And yeah, I feel quite proud to have you there.
Thank you. And I'll formally close the meeting, and I'll say karakia. And after that, you can talk to us about your game, and there's an afternoon tea in next door if you can make the time. Una here, tipo, ki watia, kia watia, kia watia. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'll invite Peter and Ben up. They're going to get set up and we'll go through the game. You guys want to plug it in a bit? Do you want that on, or do you want it off? Do you want that on, or do you want it off?
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. I thought I could introduce myself with some of the same questions. My name's Ben, and I have been working on this game for the Youth Council. I didn't want to be a game developer when I grew up, but for the past 4 years, I have wanted to, and I have been, dedicating a full day of my week, working a day unpaid for many years, and then over the last year, working on Supermare. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. If I was a councillor, I know what would be my favourite thing to do. It would be jumping on rats and getting a really big combo. Yeah, so we'll do that now. Cool. Right, so who should we make the character look like? You go, please. Oh yeah, we added in the option to have no here.
Make it shiny as well.
More shine, you say? Oh, let's slow it down, Peter. What colour should our shoes be? Oh, green. Do we have the option for sound? No.
Maybe.
Maybe just play it. We can keep going, but yeah.
Just go back. Just touch me. Oh, it is the mouse. Sorry. Yeah, cool. Well, this should be it. You know, it should. Does it normally play music right now?
Yeah.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, it's got some like some jazz. It's a little bit CD. Wonder if it might need a reboot once you change the.
Yeah, I might just check our settings.
All right, let's get into the world. Oh, okay. Cool. So we start out in Rolleston, of course. Little sort of the speed running. Now, we're not supposed to be able to survive this, but Peter might survive it. Oh, he did it. Broke the game.